Hi everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in. Today's review is on the They're Real Push-Up Liner from Benefit. This is a brand new product, comes in a little box like this. Of course, a lot of us are familiar with the mascara known as They're Real, and now they've created this liner that's kind of like a new take on cream or gel liners, because instead of having like a little pot of liner and a separate brush, what they've done is put it in like a click-through format. That rubbery kind of angled tip. You twist the bottom and a little bit of cream edges up out of there every time you click. The description of it says it's the first ever lash hugging gel liner pen. The custom AccuFlex tip hugs your lash line for bigger looking eyes in seconds. And as you can see, that tip is really flexible there. It kind of feels like a silicone type material, but you're pushing up a very thick cream type product up through that tip. And I noticed the most thickness of this formula and the most dryness, I guess, the very first time I used it. It takes quite a few clicks to get it going. I really attribute a lot of this to it being the first use, but it seems so dry going across my lash line. And I really had to make a point to keep everything really taut there in that area so I could easily get across it, but skipped a lot and I didn't feel like I got a real even application. I didn't feel like it made it any easier to get close to my lash line than anything else. In fact, just the consistency of this cream made it harder. I will say with subsequent uses, I feel like this is not quite as dry, but still significantly more dry than a lot of the cream and gel liners I've used. I'm really a big fan of the Essence gel liner in Midnight in Paris. I think it's a really nice smooth texture that's very long wearing, but it remains very thin, and I've got like a fantastic brush that I absolutely love for cream and gel liner, and it's the Real Techniques Fine Liner brush. It gets me so close to my lash line with much less effort than it took to use this pen. The elimination of a separate tool, while it sounds more simple, and I guess if you were going to travel or throw a couple things in your makeup bag, maybe it's easier to just take one, but I do feel like this was a little more tricky, and I think one thing that you have to be extra careful about is to only get the minimal amount of cream and gel coming up out of that tip. If you get too much product coming up out of here, it almost like, this is a bad description, but like balls up on your eyes, like it kind of comes off a little bit chunky. And I guess it kind of makes sense because this is depositing a thicker amount of product on my lash line because the consistency of this cream is just so much thicker than a lot of cream and gel liners. So I do have to go back and get more and then go across. I am surprised at how much better and more effectively I feel like my fine liner brush holds a lot of product. I do love that I get a really rich black line, and I feel like that angle makes it kind of easy to get like the right look with your wing, but when I go in there to get really precise with it and like really just fill in that wing and get a totally finished look right out to the edge, that's where it gets kind of tricky because, like I said, thicker formula. You want something really that glides on thin when you're trying to get that wing. And while I haven't had any experiences with wearing this and seeing it like smudge off or smear off of my eye, what I do notice is that it can kind of flake off some. I have a swatch on my hand that I applied and then went over it after it had, you know, a couple minutes to set. And I can see, you know, little chunks kind of coming off of that. And you can rub over it and, like I said, not really smear the line, but it will flake a little bit. And I expect there will be a lot of different opinions on a product like this, and I'm all for new innovative ideas, but I think it's best when they truly do make life easier. You know, they take a process and they make it less complicated or just a lot more effective, and I really think it's all in the formula with this. I think if they thinned out the formula some, it would glide across easier. It would really do what they want with the lash hugging idea. But for now, what I'm going to stick with, if I want to use a gel liner, I'm going to use my Essence Midnight in Paris and my Real Techniques Fine Liner brush. Really my favorite method to get that nice black rich line across my upper lash line. With really no struggles getting it close to my lashes. I mean, that just hasn't been an issue because this is such a great brush. So I hope this review was useful for you. Thank you so much for taking time to watch, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.